and Jimmy Johnson, Fox Sports, now joining us live, the Hall of Famer. So it's interesting, when Russell Wilson signed that big deal in Seattle, Jimmy, immediately John Snyder and Pete Carroll, they started accumulating draft picks. They knew we got to get a lot of players here that don't make a lot of money. When Aaron signed his deal, Green Bay started moving picks. If you ran the Cowboys today and the Jones family said, we just paid Dak $40 million on average 3 of the last 4 years, would you look at your number 10 pick and start making deals and try to get more picks?
You got to get some players cheap somehow, because, they've got half a dozen players that are eating up a lot of the cap. And, so you've got to offset that with some players that are inexpensive. And the way you get inexpensive players is you got to draft well. You got to hit on your draft picks. I think it's going to be critical for them to draft well if, they're going to compete. Now, I think they can win the NFC East because you look at the East right now, really the only other quarterback that's proven, and he's not exactly proven, would be Jones with the Giants. Philadelphia's a mess right now. Washington, who knows? They have, no quarterback situation right now. And so Dallas can win the NFC East, but I don't know if they can go further than that.
Yeah. It's I said last year, Cleveland had so much of their money on offense that their defense wasn't very good. Dallas has a lot of money on the offensive side of the ball. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Dak, Zeke, Amari. I feel like Dallas now has to really, in the next couple drafts, Jimmy, they got to go heavy on defense. I mean, if you were told, here's what I'm paying my quarterback, would you go to your scouting department and say, we're going defense the next couple drafts?
Well, you say go defense, but, if Dak's going to have success, they've got to shore up that offensive line. They can't count on Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and all those guys being healthy because they weren't healthy this year. They've got the receivers. They got as good a receiving core as there is in the league. But you don't know, is Ezekiel, is he going to be able to be successful with no offensive line? So I think they got to get him a couple of offensive linemen as well, just to ensure that what happened last year won't happen this year. But you're right. Other than that, you got to find some defensive players, and you got to hit on them in the draft.
When you were with Jerry Jones, was he as free spending? It seems to me as he's aged, he kind of got rolled in this. Dak got everything he wanted. Go back to your years with him. Was he as free spending then?
Yeah, Colin, we had our first Super Bowl, we had the lowest paid team in the entire league.
Wow.
Lowest paid team in the entire NFL. The reason for that is because, most of it was the youngest team in the NFL. Both Super Bowls, we were the youngest team in the NFL. Well, if you have the youngest team in the NFL, they're not going to be paid a lot of money. And so, we did, that team wasn't built with free agents. It was built through the draft. And that's why they were good for a long period of time, because they were all young players. So he didn't have to spend much money then. We signed, Troy to a contract, but, please, that's piddling money compared to what they make nowadays. So really it wasn't a problem back then.
There's a lot I like about Dak. I think if I ran a pro sports team, what I'd try to avoid is paying good players great money. I think he's a good player who just got a great contract. What do you like about Dak, and what concerns you all the times you've seen him?
I think he's a great leader for the team. I think the team really rallies around him. So he is a positive influence there. He can, before the injury, he could make plays with his legs. He could run the football. And he fit into their system. He has had problems at times being inaccurate. But with that receiving core, he gets people open. So I like Dak, and I'm kind of like you. I think he can win you a championship if he has great players around him. I don't think Dak can carry a football team if he doesn't have great players around him.
Yeah, he has struggled last couple of years against winning teams. Do you think second year with Mike McCarthy, go back to your career? Obviously, Troy struggled first year, got better second. Really, by third year, you guys won a lot. Do you think it's an advantage getting Mike McCarthy and Dak in their second year? How much of a leap do you think that means?
I don't know that it's going to be a huge leap. Because he had his offensive coordinator and play caller that he's had for the last couple of years. There really wasn't a change there. So I don't know that McCarthy is going to make that big an influence on Dak and that team. Again, because it's not like he was going to a new system. They pretty well doing what they did before McCarthy ever got there.
Yeah. When you look at, Dan Quinn is the new defensive coordinator. I think they'll be better. I think that's an upgrade. But let's be honest. When you look at that defensive personnel, Jalen Smith's a good player, but can I make the argument there's not a lot there? No,
DeMarcus Lawrence has got a big contract, and he's had some good years. Jalen Smith, there are a lot of complaints about Smith last year because of being out of position. But I think the entire defense was out of position. They will be better. Like you say, Quinn will do a much better job with that defense, and plus having an off season, putting into the system that they are comfortable with. So they'll be better defensively, and that will help without question. But, a concern that I have is like some of their key players were injured last year. Yeah. And once a player is starting to have injuries, the percentage of injuries goes up with that particular player. So there's no guarantee some of those key players are going to stay healthy. And, you don't know about Ezekiel either. The career of a running back in this league normally doesn't last real long.
That's right.
And you start taking a bunch of shots, those running backs start getting hurt. And so what's going to happen there? And so there's still a lot of questions on that football team. But if they do shore up the defense, they can be better. And like I said, they should win the NFC East.
Why do you think it took so long? I looked at the deal, and Dak got pretty much everything he wanted. They could have signed that a year ago. Why do you think they waited?
I think because they've got the same feeling that we've got is, he's a very good player, but he's surrounded a couple of years ago, surrounded by some great players. That's when the offensive line was healthy. They had the receivers. Ezekiel had, his best year. And, he struggled when some of those players got hurt. So, they're looking at him. They say, hey, he is a very good player. He's a great leader. He can win a championship as long as we have great players around him. But is he great? They paid him great money, though.
Yeah. Who was the first player? Because you really built the Cowboys up. They weren't squat before you got there. Who was the first player in the NFL that you paid big money to, that you agreed to, and did you sleep the next night? How did it land for
you? well, you say they weren't squat. Yeah, they were squat. But they did have 3 straight losing seasons, and they were 3-13 before we got there. The first big contract we did, was with Troy. And like I said, his money, in his career, I think he made $55 million or so. Well, Zach's already made that.
Yeah.
Or Dak has, and so he was the first big contract. But, because you don't win this league if you don't have a quarterback. And I think that was the problem that Jerry had. He was a little bit between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
He knew that there's no way you're going to win unless you have a quality quarterback, hopefully a franchise quarterback. And so, it was either, not have a franchise quarterback and have no chance, or pay Dak what he wanted.
Yeah. I will say, you knew when you paid Troy, and I feel this way with Dak, they're adults. You don't have to worry about them getting squirrely. The one thing I'll say about Dak is he's a grown-up. I know tomorrow he's the first guy in the facility.
A quality person all the way.
Yeah. Boy, it's just interesting. Jerry likes his deals, but he paid you pretty well. Didn't he?
Oh, please. Are you kidding me?
He didn't pay you well?
I actually, this is crazy. People don't understand this. This is crazy. When I went to the Cowboys, Jerry said, well, hey, I'm going to give you a long-term contract. I'm going to give you a contract. He said, how much should we pay you? I said, just pay me what I made at Miami. I said, eventually I'll get my money. But I actually took the same money that I was making at University of Miami my first year. And he said, well, I'm going to give you a 10-year contract. Well, I said, well, you don't have to give me a 10-year contract. I'll be fine. But he gave me a 10-year contract. Now, after, the second year, when it's, we showed progress and it looked like we were going to win a bunch of games, we redid the contract. We redid it 3 or 4 times. Redid it all the way until I left. We worked out the deal, and he paid me some money. But hey, please, I was maybe a couple of $1 million.
All right. Well, you're out in the Keys. You had to do pretty well with that thing. Maybe it's Fox.
Hey, Colin, I have made more money in the stock market than I ever made coaching. Really, what has allowed me to come to the Keys and do what I'm doing, it's because of the stock market, not because of coaching.
It is funny to look at those coaching salaries. They're big now, but you go back.
My wife Rhonda asked me the other day, says, how much are these coaches making? And I said, what some of them are making. She said, I knew you should have stayed in coaching.
That's funny. The legend, Hall of Famer Jimmy Johnson. Great seeing you, Coach. Thanks so much. You're a busy guy. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.